Hey, what's going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be going over the replacement of the doors and fenders on a wrecked vehicle. We got this wrecked vehicle from Copart just a couple of days ago. It's a 2016 Kia Sorento, and the vehicle has damaged doors and fenders as well as other parts. But in today's tutorial, we're going to be covering the full process of how to remove and replace 2 doors and 2 fenders on this 2016 Kia Sorento. So without further ado, let's get into it. So you can see here in this clip, we made our way to a local junkyard pull apart. We were on their website. We seen that they had the same make and model as well as the same exact paint code. So we figured let's go grab these 2 doors and 2 fenders. All right, so before we started pulling the parts, we double check the placard, the information card, to make sure that the paint code was an exact match. KCS, that's exactly what we need. This couldn't have worked out any better. We got the driver fender, we got the driver door, got the passenger fender, and we got the passenger door. So we're gonna start off by removing the fender. Some of these fastener and bolts are already taken off from the body shop where it was probably inspected initially after the hit. I can see one here. There may be one actually right there that I can see as well. A 10mm bolt, usually 10mm, but they might differ on other vehicles. There might be another 10mm here if I remember. And there's probably gonna be one hidden between the door jamb. We can't access now, probably right here somewhere. So we're gonna remove those remaining bolts to take off the fender. All right, I got the foam padding out from behind the fender and the fender liner, so that I'd be able to see and access the 10mm nut that's holding the fender right about here on the inside. All right, so a ratchet like this with a long extension definitely made it easier for better access to get to that nut. Now that nut, you don't have to take it out all the way, you just back it out, because the fender, where it secures the fender, it's like an open C, so the fender opening just slips out. It's not rounded completely, so you just back the nut off and the fender ear will just slip out of that nut hole, out of that location where the nut is. Easier for you to get out the fender. All right, so you got this cap that's behind here. It's got 3 plastic clips, and behind there it's got a 10mm bolt or fastener for the fender that you have to access. All right, we have hopefully the last 2 bolts at the bottom of the fender, and this fender should be ready to come out. All right, so the fender is off. Close-up look, you can see while we are replacing the fender, it's pretty mangled at the tip. Maybe a really experienced body guy could save this fender. I know I can't. I'm generally not a body guy. I'm a technician, repair guy, but I don't do body work for a profession. It's just something I kind of dabble with a little bit. So just easier process for me to just replace it. All right, now that the fender is off, you can see how well and easy access we have to the door hinges. You've got 2 bolts or 2 fasteners right there. You've got 2 bolts right here as well. You've got a harness plug right here. And then you're gonna have a bolt for the hinge right here. And pretty much, let me get you a little bit of light in case you can't see that well. So you got a bolt right there for the hinge. And pretty much that's all that secures this door. Minus even the harness. The harness is not securing the door. You've got this 1 bolt right here for that hinge. And then you have these 2 bolts for the bottom hinge and the 2 top bolts for the top hinge. And that's all that secures the door. I always tell people a door is like the easiest, fastest thing I can replace on a car when it comes to these body damages. It's just that the door is very heavy, right? And if you're haven't done it like me for a long time and you don't have a technique on how to get these doors done by yourself, definitely having a second hand, a help with the heaviness or carrying the door and holding the door up would definitely help out. But you can see the door pretty much If I take these bolts off, these two bolts at the bottom, 2 bolts at the top, as well as that 1 bolt for the hinge, this door generally will hold up by itself when it's closed and locked in. So that's how I do the job by myself. You will have some cases where it starts to fall on this side. Just keeping a little bit of knee or body or side thigh, a hip pressure on the door on this side will help. So once you get that unfastened, keeping a little bit of body pressure on here, just pull open on the handle and the door comes loose. You can set it aside. The same exact procedure for going in is you just want to line it up as best as possible with these hinges. You put the door lock latch into the proper location, line it up, and you close the door, and the door will hold by itself while you fasten these bolts. You'll see in a little while how I'm able to do it by myself. Now, I don't necessarily recommend you do it by yourself. The door is heavy. If it does fall, you can definitely get hurt. So if you have a second set of hands, definitely utilize it and take precaution. All right. So let's continue on the removal of the door so you can see how that works out. All right. So the next thing we're gonna do is take off the 12mm bolt that's holding the inside hinge. Take that out, put that on the floorboard, get it out the way. Just close the door a little bit easier because the hinge is loose. It'll usually fold right into itself and won't cause any issues. Next step is to remove the wiring harness for the door. It's a little bit of a different design than I'm used to. This has a release clip that you slide up. Once you slide that release clip up, slide this release clip up, then you pull on the harness and it's disconnected. So we have one more bolt in here. We're gonna take this bolt, we're gonna put some pressure on this door so the door doesn't fall on us. It'll fall down on its own. The door's starting to hang. We're gonna put the tool aside, stand up, hold the door right here, release the handle, and the door comes off. All right, so we have the first fender off, or the first door off rather. The used damaged door is right here. And honestly, this is not a whole lot of damage, honestly, on this door. I have repaired damages like this before, but I'm trying to get this car to look pretty good and perfect. I can get this fixed to look way better, but I can't get it to look as good as it looks from the manufacturer. So in that being said, we got a set of used doors in really good condition. I'm just noticing that actually one of the doors doesn't have the badge. So I just noticed that right now, but it's not a big deal. We're just gonna have to scrape off this badge right here, the all-wheel drive badge with the FE, which may stand for fuel efficiency, maybe. We're gonna scrape that off to put that on this other door with double-sided tape. Once we get it on, not a big deal. But we already got 2 doors that we got from the junkyard days ago. We found the same exact color coded door, which is something I got to show you. All right, so if you're trying to match up the colors on the vehicle with another part, on the door jamb, there is some information. There's an information card here, and on here it has a paint code. So the paint code for this vehicle is KCS. On the other vehicle, which of course I don't have with me, but I did when I was at the junkyard, I looked at the other vehicle to match up the paint code KCS that matched up, and we were able to get the same exact color doors for the vehicle. So we got 2 doors and we got 2 fenders that we're gonna show you how to install now. All right, so let's jump back into the repair. Like I said, if you're working by yourself, I don't recommend trying to do this door by yourself. It is pretty heavy. If it falls on your foot or falls on your leg, you definitely could get hurt. If you have another set of hands, someone to help you, I definitely would recommend going that route. But I've been doing this for many years, so I kind of have a technique on how to do it by myself. You're gonna see where I'm gonna hold the door on the edge right here, the inner edge, since the fender is off. I'm gonna hold the handle. I'm gonna place the door in place, line it up as best as possible. Once I put it in and I push on the door and it locks into place at the latch, the door pretty much will hold on that side. It will kind of lag here a little bit at the front end because the bolts for the hinges are not in. But all you have to do is just keep a little bit of pressure, a little bit of body pressure, a little bit of support. Once you get a couple of bolts in, you're good to go. The door won't fall again after that, right? So just watch and see how that's done. But like I said, if you have another set of hands, if you could get some help, definitely do so. Don't try to do this by yourself. Don't try this at home. And you see, just that fast, just that easy. Took me like, what, 30 seconds or so. And if I had the nut cup closer, I probably would have got it done a little faster. I had to reach for it. I forgot to put it closer, right? So it's already secure. It's not gonna fall. Once you get this door on there with the latch, it'll hold in place on this side. You get one bolt in there. It's good to go. It's not good to go where you can open it. Now you need to fasten all 4 bolts of the hinge before you can open the door, right? So, but that's just the main part of it. So we're gonna go ahead and continue on now. Always screw these bolts in by hand at minimum 3 threads. So 3 full turns at minimum. Don't put it in and leave it in there and run it in with a gun. That's how you cross thread. That's how you damage the bolt. That's how you damage the bolt holes, all right? So don't do it like that. Run it in by hand, at least minimum 3 threads, full turns. That way you know it's going in straight. Even with that, if something like a door, it has a little bit of, it has a lot of pressure and it wants to hang down. If you run it in by hand, just 2 or 3 threads, and it's hanging down with a lot of pressure, you still could cross thread the bolt. So watch out for that as well. All right, so I ran the bolts in. 2 at the top, 2 at the bottom. I connected the wire harness connector for the door. Now, in some instances, if you have a trim where the door features are different than the one of the original, you may have to replace the wire harness within the door so that it connects and matches up with the vehicle. I have done that in the past. I have had to do that in the past. For example, maybe the door that or maybe the vehicle that I'm working on has seat positioning controls, and the old door wire harness does not. You're gonna have to swap over the wire harness because of some features that might be different. In this case, it connected well with no issues. I have seen in the past, usually when the wire harness is different, the connect is gonna be different. Now, this is my first time doing a door on a Kia Sorento, so I don't know that just because it connected, that all the features are actually the same. When I was at the junkyard, I wasn't worried about that. I didn't pay attention to the features that was on that particular car. I just wanted the door because it matched the paint. If I had to replace the wire harness, I knew how to do so, so I wasn't worried about that. So I will find out later on whether or not it's a complete match as far as the harness and all the features and everything that matches up with that. So we just have to secure that one bolt that's at the hinge and the inside of the door, and the door is pretty much good to go, aside from, let's say, the features of the wire harness, or maybe even the inner trim panel color. That color could change depending on, right, the makes or the submodels. So after that, we're gonna tackle the fender. All right, so this hinge does get stuck inside the door. So you're gonna have to use a little bit of force. You could do something like a screwdriver, put it inside the hole of the hinge where the bolt goes. So pull it out. Careful not to scratch the door. Careful not to drop the flashlight on your head as well. If you're using one like me. A little bit of a workout. So this can pull out much more than it is now, but I'm gonna try to use this length right now to see if I get the bolt in there. Pulled it out a little more, that should be enough to get that bolt in there. That was not that fun to do. So it's a little bit of work to pull this hinge out. One thing we're gonna tackle later on, but I'm gonna mention it now. we're gonna have to replace the door cylinder, the keyhole cylinder for the door. Because this is a used door from the junkyard, it's gonna be a different key setup. So we have to take this key cylinder out and replace it with the other one, the other door that we pulled off earlier, right? So we got this keyhole door cylinder. It's a little bit of a job, so we're gonna have to access that to get that out, replace that as well, so that the key, the natural key that we have for the car works in the door, so you can unlock the door, right? It's gonna be a different cylinder setup. All right, so now we're gonna start to go in with the replacement fender. So the body shop only left me about 3 bolts on this fender out of like maybe 6 or 7 bolts. Luckily, when I was at the junkyard and I took the other replacement fender off, I took a whole bunch of those bolts with me as well. So definitely keep something like that in mind when you're going to pull parts from the junkyard and you're pulling off these bolts and fasteners. Don't just toss them. Usually the junkyards will let you have the bolts and the nuts that go with that part pretty much for no additional cost. So definitely save those bolts and nuts for situations like this. All right, so we practically got the door. The door definitely is on. Practically got the fender on, with the exception of a fastener that we have to get to here. Redoing some clips that broke off this trim piece right here. That pretty much looks good in a line and on, no issues. We're gonna tackle the next side. Pretty much repeat the same procedure that we did on this side. So now this door removal was just as fast, but just a tad bit more challenging, only because it didn't have a handle. Usually what I do is leave on the last bolt, last fastener, and I can hold on to the handle and then take that bolt off. But because there was no handle, I had to leave the door open slightly, which was causing it to drop on the other side when that other bolt was loosening up. But nevertheless, I figured it out. So like I said, if you don't have help, get some help. It's definitely easier if you have another set of hands to take the doors off and put them on. So we're gonna continue on, put on the replacement door and start to put on the replacement fender. All right, just a side note, so the door is on. We're gonna be tackling the fender in just a minute. So I noticed when I was closing the door, there was a little bit of an uneven close. I could feel it kind of bottoming out a little bit. So there's definitely room to adjust the door a little bit. You may have to, so because it feels like the lock is hitting the bottom a little bit, like the door is sagging, you could undo the bolts just slightly, push up on the door with some pressure, retighten the bolts. It'll allow the door to sit higher at the back end, right? So there's ways to adjust that by just unloosening the bolt and kind of, tweaking the door a little bit. right, so the door is on and replaced. And the fender is on, practically and replaced. Just maybe the side trim, a couple of more fasteners and bolts that we got to put on. So that is in the gist how you replace the doors and the fenders on both sides of this vehicle that took a hit and needed replacement. So I'm going to show you guys a little bit of procedure of replacing the door cylinder. So we're going to get to that now. All right, so we took off this rubber grommet, gained access to the 10mm screw that was in there. Once we got that out, then we go to the handle. It's a 2-part handle. This part here, and then the main part of the handle. Once you take in the 10mm screw out, you want to get a plastic trim tool and try to get in between the small part of the handle and pry out. Just pry it out, and then you got access to the lock assembly. You just swap that out with the new one. So again, that's what they look like. Got the 2 doors replaced, got the fender replaced. Other side, door and fender. It's really not a big job, not too difficult. It's one of my actually favorite jobs to do. Like I said, you've seen how fast I was able to get those doors on and off. And it's really, you know, something that's actually doesn't take a whole lot of time. Junkyards usually would sell a door for, you know, economy car, not a very expensive car, maybe somewhere between $80 to $100. Give or take. I remember a few years back, it was only like $50 for a door, but times has changed. Even doors are getting more expensive now. Car parts are getting more expensive now, somewhat to some degree. Depends on what the car is, I guess, you know, and where you're shopping at. So that's it, guys. Definitely put your comments down below. Don't forget to hit a like on this video. Don't forget to subscribe for more content like this in the future, and we'll catch you on the flip side. Peace.